All right, ready to dive into these mystery and suspense stories.
Absolutely, yeah.
You shared quite a collection.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm always up for a good thriller, and this looks like a pretty fascinating mix we've got here.
Oh, for
A
sure.
philosophical executioner,
Yeah.
a boy with, well, a rather unsettling interest in death, shall we say.
Oh, yeah.
A man trying desperately to keep his secrets buried. It's quite the collection.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So what's caught your eye so far? What's standing out to you?
Well, I think what's so interesting is how these stories, despite their really diverse plots and the different characters and all that,
Right.
they all seem to grapple with this underlying tension, this
Yeah.
idea of the lengths people will go to protect their secrets.
Mm-hmm.
We've got stories of calculated revenge. We've got impulsive acts with some pretty horrific consequences. And
Yeah.
it really makes you wonder, what is it about secrets that holds such power over us?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And, something like the cutoff point, for instance, John Latimer, trying to hide his affair, ends up in a truly terrifying situation.
Mhm.
Like, you're watching a house of cards just completely collapse.
Oh, for sure.
And each decision he makes seems to lead to a more disastrous outcome than the last.
Exactly. And I think it's not even just about that fear of exposure, that fear of, oh no, people are going to find out or whatever, but it's like
Right.
he's so fixated on maintaining this image, right,
Yeah.
of success and this perfect life that he's willing to risk absolutely everything to preserve it.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the pressures we all face in a way, right?
It does,
To
yeah.
conform, to present this flawless facade to the world, like almost
Right.
we're all performing in a way.
It's almost as if, in a way, the secret itself becomes less important
Yeah.
than the length that we will go to keep it hidden.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these stories so unsettling, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're holding up this mirror
Right.
to our own anxieties, our own fears
Yeah.
of being exposed, right?
Yeah.
Of having our carefully constructed lives just completely unravel.
Yeah, it's,
It can be terrifying.
speaking of unsettling,
Yeah.
little Jimmy Slater definitely left an impression on me.
Oh, yeah.
A young boy's fascination with death,
Yeah.
escalating into something far, far more sinister.
Right.
It's chilling, to say the least.
It is. It is. And I think what's so disturbing about little Jimmy is
Yeah.
there's like this seeming lack of a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't see
Yeah,
some clear-cut trauma
right.
or abusive background or something that would kind of explain it away easily.
Yeah,
And that's almost more terrifying.
it is.
It is. It raises this question
It does, yeah.
of, is there a darkness within us all?
Right.
Lying dormant,
Right.
just waiting for the right moment to emerge.
That is a question that definitely lingers. Yeah. And this exploration of the macabre, of our fascination with this darker side of human nature.
Right.
It seems to be a thread that runs through several of these
Oh,
stories,
absolutely. Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, you see it a lot. You see it even in small talk,
Right.
where we have an executioner, a figure that we typically associate with death, coldness, all that.
Right, yeah.
And yet we see this moment of compassion
We do.
in his final interaction with Elizabeth Barton,
Mm-hmm.
right? The condemned woman.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you challenge your preconceived notions a little bit about
It does.
who's evil, right?
It does, yeah. And that's the thing about these stories.
Yeah.
They constantly keep you guessing.
They do.
Just when you think you have a character figured out,
Yeah,
they do something completely unexpected.
exactly.
Like, take the cutoff point again.
Okay.
We think we understand the power dynamics at play
Right.
between Latimer and his mistress, Marita.
Mm.
But then the story takes this incredibly sharp turn
Yes.
and reveals a chilling truth about his seemingly innocent wife, Heaven.
Oh, yeah, Helen.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, Helen's character is a masterclass in manipulation.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like she completely flips the script on the whole
Right.
rummed wife trope.
Yes, yes,
And-
exactly.
This theme of manipulation within relationships, this
Mhm.
kind of struggle for power.
Yeah,
It appears in other stories as well.
it does. It does, for sure.
It does. It does.
You think about the strained marriage and A Cold Way to Die,
Right.
the family dynamics in The Boy Who Loved the Moon.
Yeah, yeah.
They all highlight just how fragile human connections can be
They do.
and how easily they can be poisoned by secrets and resentment.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that comes up again and again.
A Cold Way to Die was particularly haunting for me.
Oh, yeah.
The way the author uses the setting,
Hmm.
the unforgiving beauty of the Welsh mountains
Right.
to kind of mirror the characters' internal struggles.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Oh, for sure. It's like the landscape itself becomes this character.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Reflecting the isolation, the danger that kind of lurks beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that harsh environment, I think there are glimpses of hope.
Oh, there are. Yeah.
Like the dedication of the mountain rescue team.
Yeah.
Their willingness to risk their lives for others.
Yeah, for sure.
It speaks to this kind of resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of places,
Yeah.
there's still that capacity for compassion, for selflessness.
For sure. For sure.
And this kind of brings us to another recurring theme I'm noticing, this
Yeah.
idea of justice and revenge.
Okay.
Do these stories offer any sense of true retribution?
That's an interesting question. I mean, while some characters,
Right.
like Robert Greene in A Cold Way to Die,
Yeah.
seem to get away with their twisted acts of vengeance,
All right.
the stories themselves don't necessarily endorse those actions.
Right,
They
yeah.
really make us consider the ripple effects of violence
Yeah.
and the way that it can poison everyone involved, really.
Yeah, for sure. And the ending of A Cold Way to Die is particularly unsettling
Yeah,
because we're left wondering
right.
if Robert will ever face justice for
Mm.
what he's done or if he'll forever be haunted by his actions.
It's left unanswered, right?
Right. And speaking of haunted, The
Yeah.
Boy Who Loved Me definitely left me with more questions than answers, I've got to say.
Oh, yeah.
What drives Jerry Kelly to those disturbing acts?
hmm
Is it solely his attachment to Sarah, the toy rabbit?
Well, that's what's so fascinating about his story,
Right.
is that it blurs the line between reality and fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
His attachment to Sarah becomes this coping mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
An escape from the bullying he endures,
Right.
but it also fuels his descent into darkness.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about the power of trauma.
It does.
Yeah. And the way that it can distort our perceptions
Right.
and lead us down some pretty dangerous paths.
It makes you think about the role of imagination in all of this.
Uh-huh.
Is it a source of comfort, a way to escape the harsh realities of life?
Yeah.
Or can it become, a breeding ground for something far more sinister?
That's a question that kind of resonates throughout all these stories in a way.
Right.
It does.
Yeah.
All these characters are kind of grappling with the power of their own imaginations.
Yeah.
Right? The way it shapes their perceptions of themselves
Yeah.
and the world around them.
And let's not forget the cutoff point where John Latimer's quest for revenge
Yeah.
takes this horrifying turn.
It does.
And it's a reminder that our attempts to control situations, to manipulate outcomes, can often just spectacularly backfire.
Yeah, it can be disastrous.
It can.
It really can. It's like these characters are all playing with fire,
Right.
convinced they can contain the flames, but then they find themselves totally consumed by it.
Yeah.
That's what the story is so suspenseful, right?
Yeah.
This sense of impending doom,
Mm-hmm.
this sense of things spiraling out of control.
It's a reminder that even the most carefully crafted plans can completely unravel.
Yeah.
And that sometimes the consequences of our actions are far more devastating than we ever imagined.
Absolutely. I mean, these stories are full of characters who underestimate the people around them,
Right?
often with fatal results.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what would happen if they truly saw each other, right? If they acknowledged each other's complexities.
That's such a powerful thought.
It is.
And I think it speaks to the overall theme of secrets and hidden motives that runs through all of these narratives.
Mm-hmm.
These characters are driven by things they conceal,
Yeah.
things that fester and ultimately lead to their downfall.
You're spot on. They're so caught up in their own deceptions that they fail to see the bigger picture,
Right.
or the web of connections that binds them all together.
It's like each story is this
Right.
puzzle box, and we're constantly trying to piece together the clues to understand the motivations, the hidden agendas that are driving these character actions.
Exactly. And even when we think we've solved the puzzle, right,
Right.
there's always another layer, another twist waiting to be revealed.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us turning the pages, I think.
It does.
Right.
It does.
Desperate to understand the truth,
Yeah.
even as we're terrified of what we might find.
It's that delicious blend of anticipation and dread,
Yes.
the knowledge that something terrible is about to happen.
Yeah.
But you just can't look away.
You can't.
So we've talked about secrets, the allure of the macabre,
Yeah.
the complexities of human relationships.
Sure.
But But there's so much more to unpack here.
Absolutely. We've only just scratched the surface.
I'm ready to go deeper. What specifically piques your curiosity as we delve further into these twisted tales?
Well, I'm particularly intrigued by um,
Right.
the way these authors use setting
Okay.
to create atmosphere, to foreshadow events.
Right.
It's not just about describing a location. It's about making the environment an active participant in the narrative, you know?
That's a great point.
Yeah,
Yeah. The setting in these stories are so vividly rendered.
they are.
It's that they practically leap off the page.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think if we pay close attention to those details,
Right.
I think we'll uncover even more layers of meaning,
Mm-hmm.
more insights into the characters
Yeah.
and their motivations.
I'm game if you are. Shall we take a short break, gather our thoughts, and then come back ready to explore those hidden depths of these captivating narratives?
Yeah, let's do it. I have a feeling this next layer is going to be even more intriguing than the last.
Oh, I think so too. Okay, I've been giving those settings some thought. And
Yeah.
you're right, they're more than just backdrops. They really are.
They are, yeah.
Take Small Talk, for instance.
Okay.
That execution scene
Yeah.
is so stark, so chillingly described.
It is. It is.
You can practically feel the weight of the crowd, hear that silence before the axe falls.
Yeah, you can practically feel the cold stone, you know.
Right.
It's palpable. It's like the author deliberately creates this sense of suffocating inevitability,
Yeah.
this heavy atmosphere that hangs over everything. But then, amidst all that darkness, you have this unexpected spark of connection between the executioner and Elizabeth Barton.
Right, right. And that contrast, that unexpected glimmer of humanity in such a grim setting,
Yeah,
it just makes their exchange even more powerful, doesn't it?
absolutely. The stockness of the setting throws their brief moment of connection into such sharp relief.
Right.
It makes you question your assumptions about both characters.
Yeah.
It's like the author's saying, even in the face of death, even in the most sterile and dehumanizing of environments,
Yeah.
there's still room for empathy.
Yeah, yeah, and that masterful use of setting to evoke emotion.
Right.
It's not limited to small talk either. Think about the underpass.
Oh, yeah.
Mary's journey through that dark, graffiti-covered tunnel
Right.
with only the flickering streetlights to guide her.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Oh, it's claustrophobic, it's unsettling,
Yeah.
and the author just brilliantly uses those flickering lights
Mm.
to create this sense of vulnerability, of impending danger.
Mm-hmm.
Every shadow seems to hold a threat,
Yeah.
and the reader's right there with Mary,
Yeah.
feeling her fear, her growing sense of unease.
You know, the tunnel almost becomes a character itself.
It does. It's
Like this physical manifestation of Mary's own anxieties. It's like
Yeah.
she's not just navigating a physical space, but also confronting her own internal fears. Those dark corners of the mind
right.
where doubt and uncertainty reside.
It's a brilliant example of how setting can be used to mirror a character's internal state, really.
Yeah, yeah. And let's not forget the stark beauty of the Welsh mountains in A Cold Way to Die.
Oh, yeah.
They're both majestic and unforgiving, much like the secrets that the characters are carrying.
It's true. It's like the landscape itself is a reflection of the character's own moral complexities, in a way.
Yeah,
The vastness of the mountains, that sense of isolation they evoke.
right.
It mirrors the character's struggles to come to terms with their pasts, their choices, their hidden desires.
Yeah.
It all ties together.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The mountains become this symbol of both freedom and danger,
Right.
this testing ground for the character's physical and emotional limits.
Absolutely. It's no coincidence that the story's climax unfolds on those treacherous slopes, right?
Right.
It's like the landscape itself is pushing the characters towards their fate.
It's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Speaking of fate, I'm curious to delve a little deeper into the complexities of the relationships in these stories.
Okay, yeah.
We've touched upon it, but
Right.
it feels like there's so much more to explore there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
The way these authors portray the push and pull between characters, the love, the resentment, the unspoken tensions. It's fascinating.
It is, isn't it? And it's not just about romantic relationships either.
Right.
It's about the whole spectrum of human connection.
Yeah.
Familial bonds, the complicated dynamics between friends, even strangers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you see it everywhere. Take A Cold Way to Die, for example.
Okay.
The relationship between Jim and his father, Rocky.
Yeah,
It's so layered.
it
Right?
is.
It's a mix of love, frustration, and this deep-seated desire to understand each other.
Right. And the fact that Rocky is struggling with dementia adds this whole other layer of heartbreak to their interactions.
It does.
It does. Their shared passion for climbing is this fragile bridge between them.
Yeah.
Yet it's constantly threatened by Rocky's fading memories, his inability to fully grasp the present moment.
It's a poignant exploration of how even the strongest bonds can be tested by circumstances beyond our control.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that revelation about Rocky's past,
Yeah.
his innocence in a crime that's haunted him for years.
Right. That discovery completely changes the dynamic between them, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, yeah.
Yeah. It forces Jim to reevaluate his entire perception of his father,
Mm-hmm.
to see him not just as a parent,
Right.
but as a flawed,
Mhm.
complex human being who's endured his own share of pain and injustice.
It's a powerful reminder that we often only see fragments of the people in our lives.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And those fragments rarely tell the whole story. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Sarah and her stepbrother, Robert,
Yeah.
in the same story.
Yeah.
Their relationship, or lack thereof, really is fueled by secrets and resentment, ultimately leading to that shocking confrontation.
Their connection it's built on this foundation of lies and manipulation, and
It is, yeah.
it's almost inevitable that it would implode in such a dramatic fashion.
It is, yeah.
Sarah's discovery of Robert's true nature, his role in her father's death,
Hmm.
it completely shatters any illusions she might have had
It does.
about family and belonging.
It's like the author is saying that some relationships are built on such shaky ground
Right.
that even the slightest tremor can bring the whole structure crashing down.
And the way Sarah uses her knowledge of the altered will to manipulate Robert, it's chilling.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Yeah, it shows a level of cunning
Right.
and ruthlessness that we wouldn't expect from her, especially considering her initial portrayal as a rather naive character.
Yeah, it's a real transformation. You see
Yeah.
her kind of grow into this new role.
It makes you realize that even those who seem vulnerable are capable of surprising strength and resilience when pushed to their limits.
Absolutely. It's a testament to the adaptability of the human spirit, our ability to find ways to survive even the most difficult circumstances. But it also raises questions
Right.
about the cost of that survival, right?
Yeah.
What parts of ourselves do we sacrifice
Yeah.
in order to protect ourselves from those who would harm us?
That's a question that resonates throughout these stories, isn't it?
It does. It really does.
Yeah, the characters are constantly making choices,
Right?
often driven by desperation, fear,
Yeah,
and those choices have ripple effects that extend far beyond their immediate circumstances.
it's true.
And speaking of choices,
Yeah.
this seems like a good point to revisit this theme of justice and revenge.
Okay.
It's clear that these characters are seeking some form of retribution,
Yeah.
but do they ever truly achieve it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think the answer is more nuanced than a simple yes or no.
Okay.
While some characters, like Robert, might believe they've exacted justice,
Right.
the stories themselves present a much more ambiguous view of right and wrong.
Right. There's no
Yeah,
clear-cut sense of a good guys and bad guys, no easy resolutions.
it's messy.
It is. The lines are blurred, and the reader's left to grapple with the moral complexities of the characters' actions
Yeah.
and the often devastating consequences that follow.
Absolute. Take John Latimer in The Cutoff Point.
Okay.
He sets out to silence his mistress, Maria, believing he's protecting himself and his wife, right?
Right.
But his actions lead to this horrifying chain of events, ultimately exposing his own hypocrisy and the depths of his self-deception.
Yeah, it's almost Shakespearean, the way his carefully constructed world
Right.
just crumbles around him.
It does, yeah.
Revealing the flaws in his character, the darkness that he's tried so desperately to conceal.
Yeah.
And the irony, of course, is that
After
Helen,
done.
the seemingly innocent wife he's trying to protect,
Right.
turns out to be the architect of his downfall.
Oh, it's brilliant. The way the author subverts our expectations with Helen's character is just, it's masterful.
It's brilliant. It makes us question everything we thought we knew about her.
It does.
And it highlights the dangers of making assumptions based on appearances.
Oh, for sure.
She's a master manipulator.
She is.
Operating from the shadows, pulling the strings to orchestrate her own twisted form of justice.
It's like she's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Yeah, exactly.
She's always 5 steps ahead.
And then there's Jerry Kelly in The Boy Who Loved the Moon.
Okay.
His descent into darkness it's a chilling exploration
It is.
of the consequences of unchecked trauma and the ways in which we seek solace, even in the most unhealthy of ways.
It's true.
Jerry's attachment to Sarah, the toy rabbit, becomes this symbol of both comfort and obsession.
It does.
It blurs the lines between reality and fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the things we cling to for comfort can ultimately become our undoing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's like his inability to process his trauma,
Right.
his inability to find healthy coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
leads him down this path of isolation and violence.
It's a tragic trajectory.
It is, and it makes you wonder about the responsibility of society to recognize and address these signs of distress before they escalate into something truly horrific.
That's a question that lingers long after you finish the story, doesn't it?
It does. It does. What could have been done differently?
Yeah.
How can we as a society create a space where vulnerability is met with compassion rather than judgment?
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Creating that space where people feel safe to open up, to share their struggles.
Especially children.
Especially children, yeah.
Giving them the tools they need
Yeah.
to navigate the complexities of life and trauma.
Absolutely. It's a heavy topic.
It is.
And it's one that these authors aren't afraid to tackle head on.
They don't shy away from it.
They don't. They force us to confront these uncomfortable truths about human nature.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
The capacity for both darkness and light that exists within us all.
And I think that's what makes these stories so powerful, so thought-provoking.
It is.
They don't shy away from the darkness,
Right.
but they also offer these glimmers of hope, reminding us that even in the face of tragedy and loss, there's still potential for connection, for redemption, for resilience.
I think that's what keeps us reading, right?
Yeah.
The little flicker of hope.
It does. So as we move towards the final part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay.
Do these stories, with all their complexities and unsettling themes, ultimately leave you feeling hopeful or despairing?
That's an excellent question, and one that deserves careful consideration, I think.
Yeah.
Perhaps a brief pause to gather our thoughts is in order before we tackle that weighty topic.
Agreed. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
And I have a feeling our final discussion will be just as insightful as our previous ones.
I think so too.
Let's take a moment to let these ideas simmer, and then come back ready to wrap up this deep dive with a fresh perspective.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I've been kind of, mulling over that question you posed
Yeah.
about whether these stories leave us feeling hopeful or kind of despairing
Right.
about the human condition. And I have to say, it's a tough one.
It is. It is.
There's so much darkness, so much pain woven into these narratives.
It's true. These stories don't shy away from the harsher realities of human nature, that's for sure.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that darkness and light are often intertwined,
Yeah.
Even in the most unsettling tales, we often find these glimmers of hope, moments of connection that kind of defy that prevailing sense of despair.
Yeah, that's a good point. I keep thinking about John Latimer in The Cutoff Point.
Yeah.
He makes some truly terrible choices, driven by this desire to preserve his image, this carefully constructed life.
Right.
But there's a part of me that can't help but feel this sliver of sympathy for him,
I see that.
He's so trapped by societal expectations.
Right.
By this need to project an air of success and control.
It's like he's built this prison for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And the secrets he's so desperate to hide become the bars that hold him captive.
Yeah.
And it's not just Latimer.
Right.
Several of these characters seem to be grappling with the weight of societal pressures,
Yeah.
the expectations that shape their actions, and ultimately lead to their downfall.
It's as if the authors are prompting us to consider the larger forces at play.
Yeah, yeah.
The ways in which society can contribute to the creation of these monsters we see in the stories.
Right.
And it makes those monsters feel a little less monstrous, a little more human.
Exactly. They're not just villains twirling their mustaches. They're flawed individuals making choices,
Yeah.
often terrible choices,
Right.
in response to the pressures and constraints of their environment.
And then there's Helen, Latimer's wife.
Oh, Helen!
She initially appears to be a victim, but as the story unfolds, we see her true nature emerge.
Right.
This master manipulator pulling the strings from the shadows.
Yeah.
It's chilling the way she orchestrates Latimer's downfall.
Helen's a fascinating character
Yeah,
because she challenges our assumptions about um, power and agency.
right,
She's not physically imposing. She doesn't resort to brute force.
right.
Yet she wields this tremendous amount of power
She does.
through her cunning and her ability to exploit the weaknesses of others.
Her story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and that sometimes the most dangerous individuals are those who operate beneath the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Those who those who blend into the background while quietly plotting their next move.
It's like the authors are saying, don't underestimate anyone.
Yeah,
Every character, no matter how seemingly insignificant, has the potential to disrupt the narrative.
right.
To change the course of events in ways that we might not anticipate.
Speaking of unexpected turns, let's talk about A Cold Way to Die.
Okay.
Robert Greene, driven by this thirst for revenge, ends up committing acts that are just as monstrous as those he's seeking to avenge.
Right.
It's a reminder that the cycle of violence, once set in motion, can be incredibly difficult to break.
It's a powerful cycle, that's for sure. And what's particularly tragic about Robert's story
Yeah,
is that his quest for justice is rooted in a genuine grievance.
right.
He suffered a terrible loss,
Yeah,
and his desire for retribution is understandable,
right.
even relatable.
It is.
But the path he chooses
Yeah,
leads him down this dark and destructive path,
yeah.
one that ultimately consumes him.
It makes you wonder if true justice can ever be achieved through violence, or if it only perpetuates the cycle of pain and suffering.
That's the question that lingers, isn't it?
It does.
Do we have the capacity to break free from these patterns of retribution,
Right.
or are we destined to repeat the mistakes of the past?
And then there's Jerry Kelly in The Boy Who Loved the Moon.
Yeah,
His story it's heartbreaking.
it is.
It's a testament to the devastating impact of childhood trauma
Right.
and the ways in which it can warp our perceptions of the world.
Yeah, Jerry's attachment to Sarah, the toy rabbit, becomes this symbol of both comfort and obsession.
Right.
It really blurs the lines between reality and fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the things we cling to for comfort can ultimately become our undoing.
Jerry's story raises so many important questions about the nature of trauma,
Yeah.
the ways in which we cope, and the responsibility of society to protect those who are most vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even seemingly harmless objects can become imbued with significance,
Right.
can become symbols of both love and pain.
And it's not just objects.
Right.
It's relationships, places, even memories that can become distorted through the lens of trauma.
It's true.
The world, as perceived by someone who's experienced significant hurt, can be a very different place
Yeah.
from the world as perceived by those who haven't.
It's like the authors are asking us to step into the shoes of these characters, to
Yeah.
try to understand the world from their perspective.
Right,
Even if those perspectives are unsettling
right.
or disturbing, it's a challenge to our empathy,
Yeah.
our ability to see beyond our own limited experiences.
And speaking of empathy, even in the darkest of these stories,
Yeah,
we see these flickers of compassion, these moments where characters reach out to one another in unexpected ways.
yeah,
Think about the mountain rescue team in A Cold Way to Die,
right?
risking their lives to save others, driven by this sense of duty and a belief in the inherent worth of human life.
It's a powerful image.
Yeah,
Their actions are a powerful reminder that even amidst tragedy and loss, there are those who choose to act with courage and selflessness,
yeah.
to offer aid to those in need without expecting anything in return.
And even in small talk within the confines of an execution chamber,
Right.
we witness this moment of surprising tenderness
Yeah.
between the executioner and Elizabeth Barton.
Yeah. It's a beautiful moment
It is.
in a very dark place.
His decision to reveal his face to her, to offer a human connection in her final moments, it speaks volumes about his character.
It does.
And it challenges our preconceived notions about his role.
It's a reminder that even those we perceive as hardened or desensitized to suffering are capable of empathy and compassion.
Right.
That even in the face of death, there's room for human connection,
Yeah.
for acts of kindness that transcend the grim circumstances.
So after exploring all these twists and turns,
Yeah.
these moments of both darkness and light, where do we land?
Yeah.
Do these stories leave us feeling hopeful or despairing about the human condition?
I don't think it's a matter of choosing one over the other.
Okay.
I think these stories acknowledge the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
the capacity for cruelty and violence that exists within us all,
Right.
but they also highlight the resilience of the human spirit,
Yeah. Yeah.
our ability to find connection, to offer compassion, to seek redemption, even in the face of unimaginable hardship.
It's like the authors are saying, yes, the world is a complicated place full of contradictions and challenges.
Yeah.
But within those complexities, there's also beauty, there's love, there's hope. It's up to us to choose which aspects we focus on, which narratives we embrace.
And perhaps that's the most hopeful message of all,
Yeah.
that we have a choice.
Right.
We're not simply passive observers, we're active participants in shaping our own stories
Right.
and in choosing how we respond to the stories of others.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of darkness, we have the ability to choose light,
Hmm.
to seek connection, to act with compassion and understanding.
Absolutely. And as we conclude this deep dive,
Yeah.
I encourage you to carry those sparks of hope with you.
Yeah.
Let them illuminate your own path and guide you in your interactions with the world.
Remember, even in the most unsettling tales, there's always something to be learned,
Yeah.
something to ponder, something to inspire us to be better, more compassionate versions of ourselves.
Until next time,
Thanks for listening.
may your own stories be filled with moments of grace,
Yeah.
resilience, and the unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of challenges.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating deep dive into the world of stories and ideas.